Merlinsports.
Welcome everyone to our AFC WILDCARD preview show. Joining us today on Merlin Sports is our good pal DDawg. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, man. Holler, what's going on? Looking forward to it. Great time for football, man.
That's right. Yeah, and we get into WILDCARD weekend. We're going to start with the AFC, and we're going to dive right in. We're going to preview the 3 AFC wildcard games and then give you our predictions as well. So I guess we'll kind of go sequential in the order that they'll be played in, and that means that first up is a Saturday game at 4:30, and the Chargers visit. It's the Los Angeles Chargers, of course, visit the Houston Texans, and that's at 4:30 Eastern time, and looks like Chargers are favored by 3 after a strong close to the season. So, how do you see this game shaping up, and what's your analysis?
Well, I mean, I think this is Houston's coming in as the 4th seed, but they've been limping into the playoffs. Just before we went on the air, we talked about Pittsburgh limping into the playoffs, but the Texans are another team that's limped in the playoffs. I mean, they've lost to Jacksonville recently. And stuff. So I kind of like the Chargers in this game. I think Jim Harbaugh, he knows what it takes to win. He's turned that team around pretty quickly. It's not like they didn't have talent. They just needed some direction, and they got it. They're a solid football team. They're built on defense and running the football, so they can control the clock and match up physically up front. So I see them. I mean, the Texans had a great year last year. They surprised a lot of people. C.J. Stroud had a Rookie of the Year season. He hasn't played as well this year as he did last year. The Texans haven't been as explosive. They finished 10-7. Both teams were 10-7, but they struggled to get into the playoffs. Like they didn't come in the playoffs like trying to peak, as we'll see with a few other teams coming, that play next in terms of the other games. But yeah, it's a team that struggled to get in the struggled to come into the playoffs. The Chargers have been kind of slowly building towards the playoffs for the last month. So I like the Chargers in this game.
Yeah, and actually the Chargers actually got up to 11 wins, so they're actually 11-6. So they actually have the better record, and I'm with you. The Chargers just were more consistent and closed out strong down the stretch. And I like how Harbaugh, basically week 18, he chose to play a lot of his starters, recognize the opportunity to go on the road to face Houston instead of facing Baltimore. That's a tougher draw. So he actually played a lot of starters and took care of that. I think the Chargers.
Yeah, I don't think he wanted the Harbaugh ball.
No, not again. I mean, just because, also because the way the teams are playing, right? Like Baltimore's on fire right now, and Houston has kind of stumbled their way into the playoffs. And so, yeah, Chargers going on the road. I think their brand of football is kind of built for the playoffs. Strong defense, strong running game, and great coaching. So those 3 things, and then like we both mentioned, Houston kind of limping in. C.J. Stroud not looking as crisp as he did last year, and also a few key injuries too, right? I think Tank Dell is still is going to be out this game. They lost him, I think, a couple games back, and so they're a little more beat up than. Well, he's actually, I think he's listed as questionable. It's just he's got a knee injury. That's a pretty big loss if he remains out for this game. So yeah, I like the Chargers to take this. and I think that they'll cover the 3 points as well as as road favorites.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that other game. I mean, I like the. I always want to say San Diego, and someone said it earlier today. I heard someone say San Diego. San Diego's a nice place to go, and I'm like, they don't play in San Diego anymore. But yeah, the Chargers are definitely a team, and it's indoors, so it's not like there's going to be weather as a factor as someone coming over. It's an indoor game. Houston's south too, so it's not going to be like weather won't be a factor in the game at all.
Mm-hmm. And they don't have to travel all that far. It's not like Chargers are going cross country, right? They're still kind of in the western half there. So yeah, it's all looking good for the Chargers. Okay, let's move on to the Saturday night game, which will happen at 8 o'clock Eastern. And this has the Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to Baltimore to play the Baltimore Ravens. And this will be the third time that these teams are meeting this season because, of course, they play in the same division and already played twice this year. And they split the season series. But, Pittsburgh is just limping into this, whereas Baltimore caught fire, overtook them to actually take the division that Pittsburgh had a pretty good hold on until the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, in this game, I like Baltimore too. I mean, coming into this, Pittsburgh had a great start to the season, and they look like they pushed themselves ahead of everybody else. But it's a marathon, not a sprint, and Pittsburgh, started to I don't know if they pulled their hamstring or something. If you want to use a race analogy, but they've been limping at the playoffs. Whether it's Russell Wilson being unable to really sustain drives as the quarterback for Pittsburgh, their running game hasn't been very good. Over the last half of the season. Pickens is a really good receiver, and Baltimore is weak on the, in the defensive secondary. But Baltimore's defense has come along. But I just look at Baltimore, and they just got everything offensively. Like, they got so many weapons, and everything starts with Lamar. He's elusive. He's throwing the ball he made some throws yesterday. I'm like, yeah, he's really come along as a passer. And so his ability to scramble as well as his ability to make those touch passes now just help so much in terms of what's happening with respect to that team and their offense. And if their defense plays like they've been playing recently, they're going to be a very tough team to beat. It's going to be a physical bloodbath. This is like I always say this, anybody wanting to bet the game the following week, whoever plays Pittsburgh or Baltimore is sore. And this is the kind of game it's going to be. It's going to be a very physical game. But I just don't see Pittsburgh having enough to stay with Baltimore. I think Derrick Henry has a big game. He's got a lot to prove too, because they thought he was washed up when he left Tennessee, and he's shown that he's not. He's shown he's as elite as he's always been. And I think Baltimore's focused. They're on a collision course with one team. To me, that's where Baltimore is. They're on a collision course. They have one team on their mind, and they're on that collision course for that one team. What are your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also prefer Baltimore in this game, and just how they closed out. And you mentioned it, their defense, which struggled against the pass for the first half of the season, got stronger as the season progressed. And they kind of settled a lot of their the erraticness in their pass defense. And I mean, Lamar, what can't you say about Lamar? If you look at his numbers, he won MVP last year, and his numbers are even better this year. To me, I think he's the MVP. I don't know if he's going to win it, but I mean, his numbers are insane this year. I mean, 41 touchdown passes against 4 interceptions. He's been crisp in the passing game, and I think Pittsburgh is just they hit a wall. Pittsburgh's coming in losing 4 straight, whereas Baltimore's won 4 straight, and I think Pittsburgh they took advantage of a fortuitous schedule for basically the 2/3 of the season, and then they kind of ran into it was all backloaded, their schedule. Like the last 4 games, these are their opponents, which they all lost: Philly, Baltimore, Kansas City, and then Cincinnati, who was like a desperate team on that last game of the season against Cincinnati. So they just couldn't compete against some of the elite talent there, and they made Russell Wilson uncomfortable. And when it's kind of exposed, I know Pickens was he also was injured for a couple of games in that stretch, but I think it's exposed Pittsburgh as they're not too versatile on offense. And
yeah,
if a team gets a lead on Pittsburgh, they're not built to play from behind the way that their offense is. Basically George Pickens as wide receiver and not too much else. They got a pretty good tight end, but for the key to them is to play good defense and establish the run game and try to grind out the clock. That would be their best thing. But I don't want to understate Mike Tomlin, because he's going to give it his all from a coaching perspective. So I wouldn't say that this is going to be an easy game for Baltimore, but I just think that they just will fall short against Baltimore, who, for me, the X factor is, okay, not only Lamar, but when you added Derrick Henry and he almost got 2,000 yards rushing. It's funny, we say Lamar Jackson had an MVP-like season again this year with an almost 2,000 yard rusher. It's just crazy, like that kind of weapon to have.
I mean, Derrick Henry's elite, right? I mean, he's one of the premier backs in the league. I think a lot of people kind of wrote him off at the end because he was injured with Tennessee, but when he's healthy and running, he is dangerous. Open field, you might as well just turn around and walk to the sidelines because you're not going to catch him. Right? I also agree with you that Mike Tomlin is one of the best coaches in the league. He's been there 18 years. He is if I was looking to hire a coach tomorrow, Mike Tomlin would be on my short list that I make a phone call to, right? Because he's that good of a head coach. But I just don't think Pittsburgh has enough offense. And you nailed it. Like if Baltimore gets a 14-0 lead, the game's over, right? Because Pittsburgh is not built to come back. They're not built to play an up and down field and track meet type of game. They want to get into a 9-6 bloodbath, right? And I think Baltimore they just haven't too much offense for them.
Yeah, I agree. So those 2 games do it for Saturday. Then we roll into Sunday, the 1:00 game Eastern. This is the final game for AFC, and this has the Denver Broncos heading to Buffalo to play the Buffalo Bills. And Bills are favored by 9.5. So how do you see this game playing out?
So this is interesting. I mean, the Bills kind of rested everybody yesterday. I think Josh Allen got a few snaps to keep his consecutive game streak alive, but otherwise Buffalo was cruising in. They knew where they were. They were the 2nd seed. Baltimore couldn't catch them, and they couldn't catch Kansas City. If there's going to be a close game in this weekend, I think for the AFC, I think it's this one. Denver doesn't have a great offense. Bo Nix has kind of come on later on in the season. Josh Allen, you mentioned Lamar for MVP. There's a good chance Josh Allen wins the MVP. I don't think either one of them are actually MVPs when we'll get to that when we get to the NFC. But Buffalo, like Baltimore, is focused on one team. So Denver might sneak and bite them because Denver has a good defense and defense travels. But I like Buffalo in a 7 to 10 point game. I don't think they cover the spread of 9. It's a big spread for them, but um, I think the Bills will win. But the Broncos could surprise somebody. But I think I think the Bills win. Like I think there's business to be settled in round 2 with Baltimore and Buffalo. But I think right now, if you look at it, and it's surprising because the Chiefs won the AFC West, and they got 3 AFC West teams in the playoffs. So that division is very strong. But I think the Bills at home. The weather is not going to be a factor, regardless of how it is, because Denver gets bad weather too, so that doesn't bother them. But I just think the Bills have enough. Their defense is solid. They have well-rounded offense compared to Denver. I like the Bills by at least a touchdown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Well, definitely Buffalo is the overwhelming favorite. Yeah. I think Josh Allen played the first snap just to keep his streak alive, and I do like Buffalo. They're obviously the better team, and they should win. But I wouldn't sleep on Denver because of their defense. I think it gives them a bit of a fighting chance if their defense shows up. And I think because Denver was kind of playing for their playoff lives the last 3 games of the regular season, which they lost 2 of them, but they were winning, you're in. So they kind of had to. I guess what I'm saying is that they've been playing playoff football for the last 3 games, and they finally got the win that put them in. And so I think they're kind of battle ready. Whereas, the Bills, they almost lost to New England 3 weeks ago, actually, when they went behind and then they barely beat them. And you could say, New England had their defense played a good game against Buffalo. They limited Josh Allen to, I think, 152 yards passing in that game. So Denver's defense is capable of playing at a high level, and don't forget Sean Payton, the coach, who's won a Super Bowl. And I think that he's going to be scheming. They'll put some. I'm sure they're going to put some spies on Josh Allen, some quarterback spies to kind of shadow him, so he doesn't break those big runs that he's been known to break. So I think this game will be a lot tighter. I'm almost tempted to call the upset, but my reservation is that just because Denver can't score as easily as Buffalo can. So when it comes down to it, Buffalo just will have a little bit extra to outscore them. But I think this is a very difficult game for Buffalo, and I think one thing I didn't like about Buffalo last few weeks, the narrative, it was almost that they're just as concerned about having Josh Allen become the MVP, then it's almost overshadowed that, hey, the goal is winning, winning the thing. The individual awards are nice, but it's almost like there's too much talk about that. And it almost I'll give you a comparison, almost remind me of in basketball of how Joel Embiid, was complaining feverishly before he won the MVP that he should be the MVP and the narrative. And it's like, well, what about winning? I thought winning was more important than talking about MVPs. And it almost feels like Buffalo is almost in danger of falling into that trap. Yes, Josh Allen has had an MVP type season this year, and he might get the MVP, although I do think Lamar's probably... to me, Lamar's had a better season, but I think what hurts Lamar is that he has Derrick Henry now, almost a 2,000-yard rusher, right? So to aid that Baltimore offense. But man, this is a bit of a trap for me for Buffalo. I think that they could fall victim here if they're not careful.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I mean, this is going to be a tough game for Buffalo. There's a rookie quarterback playing, Bo Nix, but he's an experienced guy. I mean, Bo Nix, I think, is 24, so he played a lot of college, and so he's a little bit more experienced than your normal NFL rookie quarterback. And Sean Payton, as you said, is one of the best coaches in the league, and he's won a Super Bowl. So there's things going for Denver with their defense and stuff, but Buffalo's at home, and they have that home field advantage, and Josh Allen, he's had a great year. I'm not discounting the year he's had. He's had a great year, and there's a good chance he wins it because they've been talking about it for the last few weeks about him winning it. And for Buffalo, that's a big thing because they've never, Buffalo's a smaller market in the NFL, and so for them winning something like that would be huge for them.
Yeah, definitely would. Okay, well that wraps up the AFC. We're going to put our picks up on the screen here in a moment, and we will be back to preview the NFC wildcards. Stay tuned.